Alright, for the continuation of our lesson for today, since we have already learned that the x or displacement is the base equation, which we could simply define as C1 cosine omega at some point of time plus C2 sine omega some point of time. Velocity would be the first derivative of x first prime, or velocity. So getting its derivative would be negative omega times C1 sine omega t, because the derivative of cosine is negative sine, plus omega C2 cosine t, or omega t. And then, its second derivative, na-mention ko to kanina, is the acceleration. Again, negative omega, this time, squared, C1 cosine ulit, omega t, minus omega squared, C2 sine ulit tayo, omega t. So, always remember this equation. Okay? Lagi natin yung gagamitin when dealing with springs, sometimes sa mga pendulums. Now, the next page, I'd like to talk about amplitude. Lagi niyo siya maririnig. So, what is amplitude? Amplitude is defined as the magnitude of the vibration. And since we're dealing about magnitude, the value of amplitude, denoted by A, is always the absolute value. So there is no negative values, just the absolute value. Only the values of C1 or C2, when it is positive or negative, it denotes the direction kung saan yung spring mo ay hinila mo or kinompress mo. So, for example, meron tayong spring hanging. We have a weight. In this position, this is our datum line or equilibrium line. Let's say we stretch it a bit. Therefore, magiging position ng block natin would be here, sa green. And then, kapag nirelease natin siya, it will come to this position. Kung saan, this is, this will be stopped by the spring. And then, it will come again to this position, and then this position again, and so on and so forth. That's why the oscillation produced is called vibration. Okay, so now, in the first position, second position, third position. On a representation sa ating graph, kapag sinabi natin na, kapag in-stretch natin siya pababa from the first position down to the second position, meron tayong positive displacement. Why? Kasi mas humaba yung elongation. And then, once na bumalik siya naman sa first position papuntang third position, meron naman tayong negative displacement kasi nag-compress siya. Okay? So, ang sa ating graph, ang positive dito ay ito, of course, and then the negative ay ito. Let's say, ang amplitude natin is 3 centimeters from the datum line papunta dito. Also, papunta sa baba, 3 centimeters. Yan. Laging parehas ang amplitude ng compression natin at saka ng ating elongation. So, let's say 1, 2, 3. Pagdating natin sa point na ito, from the datum line 0, may amplitude tayong 3. And then, from point 2, babalik tayo sa point 1, balik tayo sa 0. Papunta naman tayo sa point 3, which has a negative compression of also 3 cm. 1, 2, 3. And then, so on and so forth. So, visually, makikita natin, this is the amplitude 3 centimeters, And also, dito sa baba, meron din tayong 3 centimeters. And, from this point to this point, meron tayong 1 cycle at a period of time. Okay? Now, how do we compute for the amplitude? So, our general equation, again, we back to C1 cosine omega t plus C2 sine omega t. Sama ng sulat ko. Anyways, sabayan nyo lang ako para maintindihan nyo, okay? We could equate this to the amplitude sine omega t plus the phase angle or theta. Yung phase angle, yung nagsasabi kung tayo ba ay leading or lagging doon sa graphical representation natin. Therefore, kung makikita nyo, to, going back to our trigonometry, constant times sine, tapos meron tayong dalawang variable, and then sum and difference, okay? Kapag meron tayong sine, gagamitan natin siya ng sin, cos, cosine, kung natatandaan nyo. So, magiging A, the amplitude, sine omega t, cosine omega t, plus cosine ulit, sin, cos, cosine. Cosine omega t, sine omega t. Therefore, ang ating C1 could be equated sa amplitude sine theta, and ang ating C2 could be equated to amplitude cosine theta, or phase angle. Oh, I'm sorry. Ito pala. Some correction. This is not... This should be ano pala. Should be phase angle. Sorry. Sine phase angle. Okay? Ito yan. Ito. Nang minultiply siya dito. Okay. So, moving on. As I have said earlier, we have an absolute value of amplitude. Ibig sabihin, ayun, sabi ko kanina, ang amplitude ay makukuha natin sa values ng C1 and C2 sa pamamagitan ng resultant formula. Kasi, sabi nga natin, it's always the positive value. So, di ba ang resultant formula ay C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. Or, C is equal to the square root of A squared plus B squared. So, in this case, amplitude is equal to C1 squared plus C2 squared. Now, sa relationship naman ng C1 sa C2, C1 over C2. Sabi natin kanina, no? C1 is equal to A sine theta over A cosine theta. Correct? So, ang sine over cosine, ano siya? It is equal to tangent theta. Correct? So, therefore, makukuha natin ang value ng phase angle theta is equal to tan inverse ng C1 over C2. Alright. Another thing, ang formula natin for maximum values, Vmax sa velocity is equal to the amplitude times omega, and sa acceleration naman ay Amax second derivative amplitude squared. Okay? There.